Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Superman and Lois Season 4 review series. And today I'm going to be talking about episode 4, A Perfectly Good Wedding, which I have just finished watching. And this episode, just like this entire show has been ever since it started, was absolutely fantastic. I loved every second of this episode. It was a lot of fun to watch, and it was a very emotionally charged episode, to say the very least, and a hell of a roller coaster, as this episode more or less dealt with the return of Superman. Now, unfortunately, for myself and for a lot of people, we didn't get the black suit or the long hair or the beard, so little bit of a bummer on that side of things. But I thought the way this episode handled the resurrection of Superman was very well done, because that stuff I mentioned, black suit, long hair, big beard, if you're going to go down that route, you would have to do it in maybe a movie perhaps, because the whole resurrection of Superman was crazy and over the top. And would I like to have seen that for the final season? Of course. Who wouldn't? But I didn't expect them to, because that whole story arc in itself is probably going to be at least a whole season. And I appreciate the fact that they couldn't do that or couldn't pull that off, which is fine, which is fair enough. But that's not to say that the resurrection of Superman was boring. It wasn't. It was just different. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this fourth and final season for Superman and Lois has more or less putting their own spin and take on the death and resurrection of Superman. And now that we're 4 episodes in, I think for the most part, I think they've done a great job. I think what they've done with this story arc is they've gone more to the emotional side of things, because we all know when Superman came back from the dead, he was pretty much in angry God mode, you know. So I wouldn't really expect them to go down that path for this show. But I think what we have got so far, I think they've done a really good job. And, obviously, now that Superman is back, it's not going to be a case of, yeah, he's back doing what he does best. There's obviously going to be some differences, some consequences, and obviously some big changes going forward, because this is not quite the same Superman who died at the beginning of season 4. So I'm going to give a quick recap of what's happened so far, and then after that, we'll get straight into talking about episode 4, A Perfectly Good Wedding. So, as we saw at the end of episode 3, we saw General Sam Lane sacrifice himself so that Superman can have a chance to live. He pretty much injected himself with the serum that contained Superman's blood, and he had his neck snapped by Doomsday, who was unleashed by Lex Luthor, who has been more or less keeping him as some sort of sick pet, so to speak. And John Henry Irons took Sam Lane's body to the fortress and pretty much gave up his heart, no pun intended, transferred it to Superman's body, and then we saw him come back to life at the end of episode 3. So it was a heroic final stand for Sam Lane, who not only went out on his shield like a true soldier, but he went out protecting his family and essentially, as I said, gave Superman a second chance at life and to come back from the dead. So this episode pretty much picks up where we left off from the end of episode 3. So, with that all said, let's get straight into it. Let's talk about episode 4, A Perfectly Good Wedding. So, this episode pretty much picks up where we left off from the end of episode 3. We see Lois is still standing by her father's gravesite on the Kent farm. We see the boys are inside the house, still wearing the Hawaiian shirts that they wore in tribute to their grandfather. And we also see the clouds are illuminated by the sunset, and both Jordan and Jonathan sense something flying really fast through the clouds. And Lois looks up at the sky, and there we see Superman lands on the farm in Smallville in his civilian clothes, wearing the Clark Kent glasses, and we see Lois and Clark share a touching moment as they run towards each other and embrace. And then we see the boys come out and join them and have a great big massive family hug. Superman is back and the Kent family are together once again. For this first part of the episode, about the first 5 to 10 minutes, there was no dialogue, just the music playing. And to me, it was just like watching a movie. And I have said this from the very beginning. All of these episodes, with the music and the massive budget behind it, could easily be like a mini movie. That's how good the quality this show has. And the writing as well is just absolutely amazing. I don't think I have spoken enough about the writing and the dialogue and the execution. It's just well done. And, as you're watching through these final episodes, it really makes you bummed out even more. Why couldn't we get at least one more season or even two more? Because the quality of this show is just absolutely amazing and unbelievable. I would easily put this up against any of the recent Superman stuff. It's just so damn good. So then we jump 3 weeks into the future and we see that Clark is more or less trying to readjust to living again and living with the fact that he now has Sam Lane's heart. We see him taking Jonathan to the fortress and training with him and helping him to learn how to use his powers better. And at one point, we see Clark holding his chest and collapsing and more or less has kind of like a mini cardiac arrest because you have to remember, yes, he has Sam Lane's heart, but it's not a young heart, it's quite an old heart. So seeing Clark learning to deal with the fact that he's pretty much a semi normal guy is very interesting. You know, we've always been told from the very beginning that Clark ages 20 years slower than a human being because he's Kryptonian. So to see Clark actually dealing with the fact that now that he's getting old, I think that's really interesting and don't think that's something that's ever been explored much in Superman media. And we see Lois is trying to convince Clark to take it easy. Don't let Lex know that he's back because he will send Doomsday after him again. And she's got a point. If you're going to fight a guy like Doomsday, you really need to be at your best and you really need to be at full power because I guarantee you Doomsday will probably rip what's left of Clark in two. He will probably rip him apart. So, I can understand Lois's concern. And we see the surgical scar on Clark's chest has not fully healed. All of that stuff, is got Lois worried, and rightly so. And Clark, of course, being who he is trying to play it down. And we also see that Clark's super hearing is only half effective and he can barely hear out of one ear. We see him now able to get drunk a lot quicker, which is something we never really see before. So it's a lot of stuff to deal with if you're Superman. You've got a 60-year-old human heart and, getting old and basically living like an old person is quite interesting. And we also see in this episode, Carl Cushion is getting married and essentially asks Clark to be his best man. And, this little story arc with him and Beppo, I can see them wrapping this up now because it's a little story arc. It's not a big story arc, but I can understand for the final season, you kind of want that to get wrapped up. So I completely understand and respect that. And to have their wedding held in the Kent's farm, I thought that was a very classy move on Lois and Clark's part. I thought that was very nice. And we also see Lois and Jonathan track down Gretchen, who, as we know, works for Lex Luthor. And we see Jonathan pretty much goes to Metropolis and finds Gretchen in a burning building. And we see Clark go to the rescue, and he's back as Superman in a brand new suit. Unfortunately, it's not black. But it's still a cool suit. It looks really good. But I just would have liked to have seen the black one at least one time. But I can kind of see why they wouldn't, because in this show, the evil doppelganger of Superman wore black. So I can understand why they would want to avoid a little bit of confusion, which is fair enough. So we see Superman essentially walking up to one of Lex Luthor's henchmen while shooting at flames and not affecting Superman at all. Kind of reminded me of the thug from Superman Returns who was firing the machine gun at Superman and he was just still coming towards him. I thought that was a nice little homage they did there to Brandon Routh's Superman. And we see after he pretty much takes him out, Superman says, "Not bad for a dead guy." I thought that was a really cool line there. And after Kyle and Chrissy's party, we see Lois and Clark spend an intimate night together, but what they didn't notice was the phone was going off with newspaper reports saying Superman lives. And that pretty much wraps up my review of episode 4, A Perfectly Good Wedding. Overall, this episode was brilliant. I loved every second of it. I thought the way they handled the whole resurrection of Superman was done very well. As I said, I would have liked to have seen the black suit at least for one episode, just to commemorate the whole resurrection thing as a homage to the comics, but that's fair enough. We got a new suit. It's not black, but can't always get what you want. But aside from that, I loved every second of this episode. I wouldn't change a thing. You know, as I said, it's pretty much more or less dealt with the aftermath of Superman coming back from the dead. And we all know this is all building up to the big final confrontation, not just with Doomsday, but with Lex Luthor as well. And we know somewhere in the background Brainiac is lurking. So Superman has really got his hands full here. He's got to deal with Lex Luthor, the dark threat of Doomsday, and there's also the possibility that we could see Brainiac because Milton Fine was referenced in one episode and Brainiac was name dropped as well. So plenty of things for Superman to get his teeth into and plenty to deal with. But this was a great episode as we are moving towards the series finale of season 4. But I loved it. I thought they did a really good job with what they had to work with, and I loved it. You know, the whole wedding thing with Kyle and Bebo, yeah, I understand and respect that they want to wrap up their little story arc, but it didn't really add much to this episode. That was my only issue. But other than that, I loved all of it. I thought it was really good. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What was your thoughts on episode 4? Did you enjoy it? How do you think they handled the resurrection of Superman? Do you think they did a good job? Would you have liked to have seen the black suit appear for one episode? How do you feel about Superman essentially experiencing all the ailments of an older person? Do you think he'll be able to get over it? Do you see Superman living as an old person? How do you think Lex Luthor is going to react to Superman's return from the dead? And what does this mean for the Kents? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Superman and Lois Season 4 review series, where I am going to be talking about episode 5, which I'm very much looking forward to seeing, especially with the way this episode ended. It's going to be really cool and really epic, and I can't wait to see how everything is going to go down. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.